Thanks for tuning in to the Marvel Movie Minute.
Want to skip those pesky ads and get early access?
Become a member at truestory.fm/join and discover all the other great perks that come with it.
Welcome back to the Marvel Movie Minute, a weekly podcast in which we assemble to explore the films of the Marvel Cinematic Universe 5 minutes at a time. In this, our 9th season, we're looking at Captain America, the Winter Soldier. I'm Pete Wright.
And I'm Matthew Fox.
I am Kyle Olson.
And hello, I'm Rob Cabasco.
And as we dust the cobwebs off the podcast, today, we are going all in on the Winter Soldier. We need to get you caught up on where the MCU is right now, and then open up the hood to see what this movie borrowed from the comics, especially the Brubaker stuff, and what Marvel invented, because the phrase national security sounds so much cooler when it's attached to a flying aircraft carrier full of murder algorithms. Together, we're going to connect the dots between spy thriller paranoia, Hydra's extremely aggressive workplace infiltration strategy, and the central question of this film: what if the real villain is bureaucracy? So welcome to the briefing, and to whatever this is that we've chosen for our lives. Let's start with the comic origins. Where does the stuff we see on screen come from as we careen into Marvel's spy thriller era? Who amongst us is the most equipped to talk about that?
Yes, I believe that would be me.
Yes, it's you. It's you. We're waiting for that. We're waiting for that.
Yeah, as my current title is Resident Marvel Zombie. So I was reading these live when I came in. So in the comic lore, there was something basically called like the Bucky Rule that said in comics there are 3 characters you are not allowed to resurrect: Bucky Barnes, Jason Todd, and dear departed Uncle Ben. They were sacrosanct. Like those deaths were like what I guess we in the Spider-Man verses, where those would be like the pivot points. Like these are the things that are unchangeable. But Ed Brubaker had a different idea. So he had always been a huge fan of Bucky. He, as a kid reading it, seeing this guy right next to Cap running around doing all this stuff. Unfortunately, Stan Lee was not a big fan of Bucky. He thought the idea of, in World War II, having a teen sidekick was silly, and so he retconned him out of existence. And then as the years went by, other people who also liked him slowly started making, okay, he was there, but not as much. He was around. And then finally it became, yes, that was a thing that happened. So when Ed Brubaker got to write the book, he was like, I want to bring back Bucky, and then had to pitch to all the Marvel people this, to break one of their sacred rules, that he was going to bring this guy back. And apparently it was a hard sell. But they eventually pitched this whole thing out of like, what if he'd been here the whole time? What if he'd been underground and we never knew about it? And then tied it in with Red Skull and the Cosmic Cube and all this other machinations. But it was really his long-standing stan of Bucky Barnes that made this happen.
I just want to say, for the record, it is ridiculous. The original Bucky Barnes teen sidekick to Cap was legitimately ridiculous.
Yeah. It's at the time, though, it wasn't because everyone had a teen sidekick. I mean, we talk about Robin, but also like the Human Torch, who was the original Human Torch, not the one from Fantastic Four, flew around with a teen who also set himself on fire named Toro. Like it was, every hero at that time, and this is like the late 60s, had a teen sidekick. So it wasn't weird. But then sort of the more comics got serious, then the more it became like, hey, wait, why are we putting teens in war?
Right. So it was weird, just weird for everybody.
Yes, it finally got weird.
Yeah.
How did they explain why the army would allow him to have this teenager? I generally think there's kind of rules about that.
Yeah. So in the way Ed Brubaker sort of moved it around and sort of massaged the timeline was that what we saw in the promotion of like the kid in tights like staying next to Cap, like gee whiz, let's punch Hitler and the kisser, like that was PR. The actual real Bucky Barnes was 16 when he joined up, so still young, but he was also trained as a special operative. So essentially, he's the guy they would send in under the wire to like slit a couple throats to make sure no one would sound the alarm. Like he was sort of the thing, he could do the things that Cap wouldn't do or couldn't be seen to be done because he was Captain America.
Well, and I'm sorry, I was going even further back. I'm saying in those original ones where he has this team sidekick, how did they justify them being in the army with this 14-year-old?
Because war. I mean, honestly, it was because like World War II, everybody has to do their part, including kids.
Well, and remember, I mean, at that point in the lore, Cap, Steve Rogers had been trying to sign up as a person who couldn't sign up. Like everybody wanted to do their part. Everybody they wanted to be older than they were, and I think that was it to my mind around the lore, the easiest sell is to justify Bucky putting on boots.
Fair enough.
Yeah, and then of course when they bring him into Captain America: First Avenger, then they make him sort of the older brother. They sort of have him aged up so that he's the one who's already there first, which was not the case.
That brings us to the actual arc of the Winter Soldier in the books. The spy thriller books, the Brubaker books, we've retconned the fact that Bucky is dead. He comes back. He's actually, how much of what we see on the screen is the thing that we have from the glorious canon of the books?
Not much. The reason that Bucky has the metal arm is because canonically in the comics he was holding on to a bomb that Baron Zemo was launching up, like a buzz bomb, I think they called it, and his arm got caught in the bomb when it went, and then he diffused it, but it still exploded, and he lost the arm. That's why it's in the movies. They just kind of go, well, he fell.
Yeah,
it's that weird movie thing of like, they want to make it look just like the comic, but we're just not going to have the same reason why. And so obviously, and the age range being different. It was Russians, like it's always been Russian. The Red Skull was a lot more heavily involved. The Cosmic Cube was heavily involved, which we know as the Tesseract, but actually in Marvel thing, it is just like a whole different magical artifact. And it can do it's like a wishing stone. It can kind of do whatever you want it to do. And the Red Skull was trying to do that. So that's what Cap ends up using to restore Bucky's memories. So it's not I'll with you to the end of the line or punching him in the face a bunch of times. It's he literally uses this thing to like fix his memories. And so there's a lot more psychic manipulation and timelines and body jumping and things that go on because comics.
Because comics. We still have, I believe, the Steve's grief angle at the loss of Bucky, right?
Yeah.
And that's one of the things that makes me think about this movie fondly in terms of its adaptation, if only I think of it as a vibes adaptation, right? Knowing that literally the stuff that we're seeing on screen was not pulled from a panel, which sometimes the nerd in me is just exuberant for the panels that are recreated in the films. I still like the fact that I'm getting the emotional beats, that the emotional panels are resonant in the film as adapted from the comic.
This is one of the downsides of sort of when you have to do a movie and have to do so much shorthand. Is that we have only seen Bucky for like 10 minutes, 15 minutes. Like we got to see him. I mean, and I thought Joe Johnston did a great job with that in First Avenger of seeing them hang out and understanding the relationship, and then Cap basically throwing everything away to go after his friend and rescue him. But it's like that doesn't take away from like 20 years of adventures that people in comics had been reading along, and then suddenly having him come back and be a villain, like it was a huge thing. It's just like, oh yeah, I kind of remember that guy. It's like, oh yeah. Doesn't have quite the same impact. Like if they did a heel turn now on somebody, then it would mean something because it's been 10 years. So if somebody they introduced in First Avenger or Iron Man or whatever, suddenly, Happy Hogan suddenly is now a super villain. That takes on a whole new thing. because we now have a relationship with him after all this time watching it in movies.
I hear her saying, because that was very much my perspective as someone who didn't know the comics at all, saw the first movie, and probably, I didn't connect to Barnes in any particular way because I didn't know him from the comics. And then, I see him in Avengers, and then a couple years later, I hear there's new Captain America movie coming out. And I just had no memory of him from the first movie. And I'm curious, for those who did know the comics, when you saw the first movie and you saw Barnes be introduced as a character, and then you saw him go down on that train track, did a part of you kind of feel like, oh, so we're gonna get Winter Soldier at some point?
Yeah, pretty much. This is my daughter makes this joke all the time when she goes to see the thing. She's like, "Man, my favorite characters are the Waynes. I hope nothing bad happens to them." So it's the same thing. As soon as we saw it, we're all like, "Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Like she's like, "Hey, it's me, Bucky." We're like, "Yeah, tick, tick, tick. Your time's running out, buddy."
It's such an interesting observation, though, because I think at that point, because there hadn't been so much Marvel stuff introduced and then threads dropped, to me, it was like this could very easily just be the isolated Easter egg, not knowing what's coming. And I don't think when this movie came out, I was paying as much attention to the performers' contracts. So Sebastian Stan signing a 9-picture deal was not in my headspace. So
it's funny because it's not that long ago this movie was made, 11 years, 12 years, and yet I feel like the media ecosystem around these movies has changed entirely, because today, and there probably was some of this, but it was not as ubiquitous. Today, a movie like this is getting announced, and the lead up to it, some idiot who runs a podcast like Superhero Ethics is going to do something like, all right, here's your primer. Let's talk about everything from the first movie that you need to remember going into this one. And I just, there probably was some of that for the people who are really deeply into the MCU already. But I feel like when it came out, there was very little of it. And, I saw it with a group of friends, and one of us had knew who he was, but he certainly hadn't said anything to us beforehand. And most of the people I knew were like, oh, that's cool. Bucky, I guess I remember him. Well, sure, he's a fun character now, so let's go.
What about the extended characters in here besides Bucky? Obviously, Cap, we know. What about our dear friend and future Cap, Sam Wilson? What did we know about Sam Wilson from the books at this point?
Falcon had been around for a long time. I think I don't have that in my notes, but I think he came around in the 70s or so, and he was a sidekick for a while. So he was sort of almost like a replacement Bucky. He sort of bounced around. He was sort of had a time where he was popular, and then he just sort of became a background character, like a lot of the guys. He was, sort of peripherally involved with the Avengers and different incarnations of them, but never really had that pop. Honestly, I think a lot of it came down to this movie, really, because I never really. He was fine. He was he had a psychic link with a bird. It was I didn't really understand.
That's the thing I remember the most is why him?
Yeah, right. So and I was like, huh. But then when they do, and as we'll talk about over the course of this thing, I think this sort of redefined the character, and now suddenly he had a huge resurgence, and then eventually leading to where he is now in a very familiar suit.
Okay, Sharon Carter.
Yep, Sharon Carter, another one she's been around for a long, long time, and it wasn't as weird as it gets in this with the whole still loving Peggy thing. She was a long-term love interest of his, and it was fine. It was fine. There was nothing creepy about it. And she's had her own run a long time. I don't think she might have, if she'd ever had a solo book, it was a miniseries or something. But she's once again has been tossed through time and aged and de-aged, and just like anybody around Cap, something weird is going to happen.
Although what's so interesting about their relationship in this and in the transformation or the transition to the film is that we lose that romantic thing. She just becomes more of a values check on Cap, which I think is an interesting thing because again he has still has long lost attention for Peggy.
Yeah, she's very much a peer in the comic. She is sort of Nick Fury's right hand for a lot of it, and also kind of does serves the role that Black Widow does in this, where she would be in the comics. That was what she'd be doing. She'd be doing running the ops. She'd be doing the intel. She'd be maybe working behind Cap's back. She'd be doing a lot of that. And so when they de-aged her and then sort of made that connection, it kind of made her more of the rookie as opposed to as Cap sees her as a peer.
Yeah. I did think, and we can talk about this more in our sort of overall vibes for the movie discussion, but I do think that they're setting up a romantic tension in this one already. Like, Natasha is asking him all the time about different people he might want to date. Him and the nurse are, flirting a little bit. So I agree, it isn't paid off until Civil War, but I do think it's definitely established in this one.
Yeah, I think there are hints of it because they need to plant seeds. But like Kyle was saying, like my memory of the books is she was, like you said, the love interest for a while. And that is that we're just planting seeds. And I don't think it's ever really quite, it never matures to the point that it ended up in the books.
I think it comes down to, honestly, to chemistry. I mean, like there's a couple of relationships in this that like rewrote the continuity just because they were so strong. And I think the connection between him and Peggy Carter was so strong, it just redefined everything. In the same way, I would say the relationship with Sam, like with like Cap and Sam Wilson. Like Cap has had a lot of partners in the comics over the years, different people he's had, like he's trained or have trained by him, or different things. But like the two of them together are electric. And it was like, I think it became like, okay, he's the guy.
He was the guy. I mean, we'll see when we start talking about the movie, but for my money, he was the guy in the first scene of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
That charisma was so palpable. He became, of course, the guy.
Yeah.
And one thing that really strikes me in the movie, and so I'm saying this because I really want to know if this is from the comics or if this is an invention of the movie, is how Sam not only sparks this chemistry, but he connects with Cap on kind of a vulnerability that Cap has that we've never seen before, in terms of him being one more soldier struggling to come back from the war, and then him and Sam, we so often think of Cap as being, the superhero, but in this way, he's the everyman, just like any other soldier coming back from two different wars 50 years apart. They're having trouble sleeping on their bed because it feels like a marshmallow. Is that something that is strong in the comics, or is that something that was really created for this? Because it's such an interesting part of the character.
No, it was much more created for this. Like, and from my, and like this, and even he was sort of, before I had started reading, Sam had already sort of moved into the background by the time I got big into the comics. He was basically more like, much more like the guy from the streets. Like he was that, and he would sort of challenge Cap on that. Like, you're up there like flying around on Quinjets, but like I'm down here with the people trying to help them. So he was much more of a antagonistic that way, and not so much of like, gee, Cap, what are we gonna do next? It was more like you and your red boots coming down to my side of town. So it was, there's a lot less of like soldier to soldier thing. I think that's something else that they made a big point of in this one, to make that connection between them.
One of the reasons I have been so excited to talk about this movie on this show is because it is such a departure in tone from the others. And it introduces us through Marvel to one of my very favorite genres, which is the spy thriller, right? The espionage thriller. And so I need to know just how much Brubaker is buried in the DNA of the espionage thriller. How much of the super weapon helicarriers with predictive targeting and all of that stuff is built into the DNA?
Of that, none. Like none of this.
Okay.
But to your first point, absolutely 100%. That is where he loves. Like and all the stuff he does. And he does a lot of crime comics, so he does a lot of like dirty people doing dirty things. And so all that conspiracy and lying and who do you trust and who can you believe and who's on your side and who's betraying, all that is definitely in his entire run of Captain America, and even into his stuff on Daredevil as well. That boots on the street, like, that sort of, even though you have cosmic cubes and Red Skull jumping bodies and all that stuff, there's still this real down and dirty element to it. That I think is one of the best things about this, like you say, the spy thriller part of it, that everybody, like Cap on the run and having to hide out and all these things, as opposed to flying through the air, like, we see at the end of Black Widow where she's jumping from pieces of a flying ship and stuff too. We get that, but because there's been such that lived in reality until we get to that point that we're okay with that, as opposed to some of the later ones where it just feels like we're never on solid ground.
Well, and similarly, I think one of the things that really gets introduced again from the very first minutes in this one is the tension between Cap and Fury specifically. And like we saw some of that in the Avenger movie, but especially the idea that Fury's ideas for what S.H.I.E.L.D. should do are really getting to some dark places. How much was that part of the Brubaker run?
Not as much, because the villain's scheming was much schemier. So it was a lot more of the Russians and Red Skull and Crossbones and all of them pulling most of the strings. Nick Fury was hiding things and as he often does, and moving things around, but he was less of the antagonist in terms of like, this is my plan. Oh no, someone has taken over my plan. It was much more them on the back foot trying to like keep ahead of whatever, and lots of people die and lots of things, lots of cities get exploded and things, but it's less that there's something evil inside of S.H.I.E.L.D. that sort of came from the screenwriters or from different stories that they pulled in.
Yeah, the institutional that the institution is suspect is a new thing for us in this era of the MCU, right? Because prior to, even when you go back to the Hulk, right? I mean, the institution was suspect in the form of the military, but the military was never shy about talking about what it was doing.
Yeah.
Right.
We want Captain Americas. We want a squad of Captain Americas running through every country, exerting our will.
Exactly. This introduces us to a new era where S.H.I.E.L.D. can't be trusted. There is a virus in the system, and I think that pays dividends many movies down the line from this point. This is, for my money, ends up being an inflection story.
I'm still amazed. We'll get to it in the thing, but that they found a way to bring in Arnim Zola and do it in the way that they did was like one of those characters I thought, oh, they're never going to be able to pull this off.
Yeah,
and they absolutely did.
We'll talk a little bit about Zola, because there are three more characters that I wanted to talk about. One was Zola, one was Rumlow, and one was Alexander Pierce.
Yeah.
So let's start with Zola.
Yeah, Zola is one of those like we talked about on another podcast about like the Silver Age kind of thing where things got psychedelic and weird. Like if you go and find the Nick Fury comic that was there, it's Steranko stuff. There's the psychedelic bombs and it's all mod and twisty and wild. And Zola was sort of in that time period where he started out as we saw him in First Avengers, and as just a scientist. Eventually he becomes like a robot face that lives in a body. So like his stomach is where his like digital face is, and then he's walking around and it has like almost like a disc on top that shoots lasers out of it. It's wild.
Are you telling me he's a Teletubby?
Yeah, except Teletubbies have heads. He didn't even have a head. He just has a plate. His head lives in his stomach. He's like what's the thing from Othello? The anthropophagi, the whose heads do lie beneath their shoulders. Like that's what he was. And he was the typical mad scientist that would like show up to be doing all of the evil bidding of Hydra or Red Skull or whoever would give him the money. I mean, like, it's amazing to me that they pull off Zola in such a fantastic way, and then they do MODOK and completely drop the ball. It's like both wild characters, and they found a way in one, and I feel like they bobbled it in another one.
Yeah.
But Rumlow is great. Crossbones is just the perennial soldier for hire a-hole. He's the Punisher with no code. He's like, yeah, you give me the money, tell me who you want me to shoot. Like he's great. He's done work for so many supervillains, and because he just has no code, he has no thing. He just wants like a beer, a gun, and a babe. And
was he ever a sympathetic character in the books?
No.
Never.
No.
Okay.
I mean, he even had a relationship, but of course his long-term relationship where he's like, oh, he found someone he loves, is the Red Skull's daughter. And so the two of them become Bonnie and Clyde for a while, and it does not go well for anyone.
Right.
Well, that ends up being a really interesting adaptation because they end up taking him and trying to make us like him.
Right.
As we adapt him to the film.
Yeah.
Okay, good to know. And last, Alexander Pierce. This is a name that has been part of the bureaucracy represented in the books for years, but never quite relevant, I don't think. I think it was the MCU that made him relevant, right?
Yeah, pretty much to my, because I don't remember even him having a significant arc or
Yeah.
being the guy. There are a lot of guys in suits, Maxwell
Mhm.
Lord and stuff, who just show up again and again as that face of bureaucracy or business or government oversight. From my experience, he was just another one of those guys that they kind of just, and I feel like Marvel has admitted sometimes they just go through a list of names and then go, yeah, they'll do, and they'll bring him in. So I think there was nothing really significant. They went like, oh, we have to have this. They were just like, yeah, he'll do. And then you go to Robert Redford and look what happens.
Okay. Anything else specific you want to make sure we nail in the comic origins? It sounds like we're at this point in the comic origins where there are not enough specifics to be able to say, if you want to see this adaptation, go read this book. But really, it's the Brubaker run if you want the vibes check.
Yeah, I mean the whole like there's like you were talking about panel wise. There's shots straight from the comic, like him catching the shield in his hand, like that's a panel. Like there's a bunch of those kind of moments, but then after that it kind of diverges when they bring in the helicarriers and all that. No, I think I was really hoping that they were going to do Nomad, which was a whole other thing where Cap gives up being Captain America and he like drops the shield and drops the name and everything and becomes Nomad. We see that alluded to kind of as we move past this and into Infinity War and things, but they never actually fully go on with that. Also, that costume is ridiculous. So if you ever
this is that's not just the black costume.
No, it's a deep V. It's a deep V with big gold discs. It's so 70s. It's so awful.
Wait, is it like Borat deep or like
yes.
what?
Yes. Like
I'm talking
it is sternum. Like it's a deep V and a cape. It's wild. But I kind of thought they were going to go that way where he like says, I'm not Cap now, I'm this guy. And it does kind of happen, but they never full on say that. Obviously, we know John Walker is coming, so there'll be another Cap and another Cap after that.
I've got one last comics question, and this is kind of more at the end of this and the results of it, but I think it's relevant. In the way the movies set things up, spoilers for what's coming next. But this, as Pete was saying, this is the inflection point for Cap that causes him to, stop trusting really anything but himself and the people he believes in, which is, of course, a huge part of his motivation in the movie version of Civil War. And I'm wondering if there's that connection in the comics, that the sort of the break in trust he has with SHIELD and with Fury and with all that is kind of consciously in his mind when we get to Civil War in the comics.
Yeah, there was a I'm trying to remember what the name of the run is. I can't remember, but like basically it was actually around Watergate, Nixon. Like there was a point where that they brought in and he thought he was taking orders directly from the president. It turns out, I think it was a Skrull. I don't know, but it turns out it wasn't. And that like broke his trust. And then he said, I don't work for the government. I work for the people. There's a huge moment where he's like, I'm Captain America and I'm proud of the soldier, but I don't work for you. Like, this is my, and it was a huge sort of break in that, where it's not like, I'm not going to take orders if I don't believe in them. And it was a big turning point for him. And that was also, if you ever see the Cap for president, that was part of it too, is like they were doing all this hype to build him up. And then only for him to be like, yeah, that's this is the line I won't cross. So they took a lot of that and put that into this too. So like that, him standing up and going, no, you move, like that stuff, that was always like baked into it from way back then. So it was, I give it to Marcus McFeely. I give him a huge amount of credit for taking the character that we have learned in these double and just putting him in these situations and having it feel like, yes, this is what he would do in these things. And in this way, I don't want to brag on Quantumania, but like, I don't know who that guy was in the Ant-Man suit. Like I don't get it. But this, I feel like they put him in the crucible and he comes out stronger.
This, so check the show notes, everybody, because I'm going to put links to the arcs, to the character pages, especially to the Nomad suit. Yeah. Dear God, that is a work of art. And all of that will be linked in the show notes so you can check it out, get yourself ready to go. We are very excited. I'll say that speaking for you. We're very excited to start talking about this movie. Give me, just in the spirit of the comic, let's go around. Give me one thing you have been most excited to see in this movie adapted on screen.
Can I just say, I have been sitting here quietly because I have not read any of the comics related to this.
Okay.
And what I'm takeaway is that there's really no comics I need to read before watching this movie again.
Well, I mean, do you ever need to?
But very different. But can
Yes.
I tell you, though, very different. And when you think about where this movie is, which we'll talk about probably in the next episode, where it is in the MCU, this is the real departure of where they're at in this third movie of phase 2, where, now they're writing their own script. That's what it sounds like.
Yeah.
And I find that interesting. I mean, that's bold. I mean, it's bold for where the world was at the time this was being written, and it's bold for how confident they were about what they were doing in the production of these movies.
I think that's a really good point. And I appreciate that you haven't read any of the comics going into this. I think that's great.
Yeah,
that's what my role is here.
Your perspective,
Yeah, that's really good. And I should say, my background with the comics, I did read the Brubaker arc when we were preparing to do Captain America, the first one. I just devoured as much as I could. So it's been a while. But when Andy and I did that film for this show, but at least have a little familiarity with it. Matthew, what's your history with the comics?
They're the books with the pages, I think, with the pictures.
You got it. Yeah.
Point
taken.
I am here to represent the kid who didn't do the reading the night before in the class. But
Excellent.
Rob, we can bullshit our way through it. Or we can guess our way through it. That's totally fine too.
Or I will just be the church mouse in the corner, and I am happy to listen, and then come in with the Borat joke.
Because
so
That's nailing the Borat joke.
The Borat joke. We need the Borat joke. But no, I mean, I think my history with comic books, it's just about the way my brain reads art is well documented in past episodes. But I love that we have that here, and that's why I'm asking so many questions about it. And I think for me, I'll phrase the question a little differently in terms of, for me, that it's less about what I want to see from the comic books, is just like the parts of the world that I want to see fleshed out more. And I'm really excited to learn more about S.H.I.E.L.D. and to learn more about Hydra and to learn more about Steve's place in that, because I'm an ethics weenie. I'm a government weenie. I'm a bureaucracy weenie. I'd like to see how all those things work. And I think that's one of the reasons why this is easily in my top 5 of MCU movies, is because of how much this is not about, hey, good guy here, bad guy here, good guy go smash bad guy, good guy have feelings of guilt, or good guy have feelings of whatever, good guy get over feelings, good guy go smash bad guy again. Instead, this is really asking, like, what is the bad guy? This is the first of the, as we've said, it's not a superhero movie. It is a super spy movie with superheroes. And that's, I think, the thing that I'm most excited about with the MCU. And at the time we're recording this, we're seeing the MCU get back into that in an amazing way. So, yeah, I think that's the thing I'm most excited to talk about, is just what's this new genre that we can have.
I love that you said that, because I also was going to allude to Wonder Man, because as we record this, it's the same. We're getting a vibe where we're figuring out again how to use powers in humans for something else, for storytelling. This movie is a real branch on that tree. So this is great. We are very excited to be talking about this movie, to be moving this forward. There are all 4 of us here because we've been waiting since we started Marvel Movie Minute to get to this movie. That's how excited we are. No one could say no. And so we're doing it. You're going to start seeing episodes pop up in the main feed very shortly. On behalf of Rob Cabasco and Kyle Olson and Matthew Fox, I'm Pete Wright. We can't wait to see you in the main feed starting very soon.
Make mine Marvel.
May the force be with you.
Bye.